Good morning. Been kind of rough. It's just been long days. So I published that, or finished up work on that Pomodoro timer thing. It's a standalone circuit, so it can be built into something else. But the code is what's important. And the code is what I was really after, because I had used, I like rotary encoders, and I like the feel. It's got that, it can infinitely spin. It doesn't dial all the way up and then dial down. And that infinite spin just has a lot of options built into it. So like, using it with, even using it as like a menu interface where you can, click your selection up, down, and then push in the button to select it. I had always wanted to mess around with that. I thought it was I still think it's it's an excellent interface idea. The problem was timing on those things, especially the non-optical ones. You really need, I shouldn't say that. I imagine the optical ones might have kind of the same. I don't know. If you made a circuit, or if you made a very simple Arduino Nano, ATmega 328, which is I think 16 megahertz, and you made it monitor that rotary encoder, you're golden. You're fine. If all it is doing is monitoring that rotary encoder, you're going to have very good feedback. You might have to clean up a little bit of noise, but you're fine. Once you start adding to it, things start getting really weird. So there's a balance to be struck between what other tasks the processor is doing, and, by the way, also checking that rotary encoder in a timely fashion. Because if you read the rotary encoder at the wrong time, the signal is like inverted, so you get the opposite direction, which is not good user interface. So when I think about that, I've been paying extra attention to rotary encoders. It was also like the fast spin. If you spin it super fast, it'll sometimes go backwards. That's more indication of the difficulty of working with them. So if you have a rotary encoder that's like, if you spin it right, it goes up, and if you spin it left, it goes down, and your scale is 0 to 100, and your volume on a radio, that's a good example. If you turn your volume dial, it probably doesn't stop, it probably just keeps spinning. So you turn all the way up or all the way down and just kind of keep going. It maxes out at a certain limit though. But if your selection is 17, and you want to make it exactly 17, even though 18 and 19 are pretty much the same as 17, it's like that, it's actually your turn, but okay, whatever. It's like if it's not precise, then it's not a big deal. And most rotary encoders do suffer from that inversion, where if you spin it too fast, it goes opposite, or it reads 5 reads when you gave it 50, that kind of thing. It goes slower if you spin it too fast. So again, not a big deal in most cases, but when you want it to be finely adjusted, if you're navigating a menu or something, then you need to be able to catch every mechanical click, because it's got a little detent in it that makes it so you turn it and then it goes zip. It has like rests on those different notches. So getting it to track, to be able to do those fine adjustments and go just +1 and just -1 and figure all that out is, that was strange. It was difficult, is what I mean, I guess. It was just odd, because you had to mess around with a whole bunch of different parts, because there's different ways to monitor it, and this is not important at all, but, whatever. Suffice to say, the rotary encoder works, so, and works well. So now my next goal is to build it into something else, or build it into something completely different. And there was a YouTube commenter that had a great idea as far as building that into a numpad, and that's like the perfect it's the perfect small scale test for my keyboard firmware, for my official unofficial keyboard firmware that has that integrates a lot of the features that I've been trying to work up, like the I2C remote keyboard, like daughter keyboard state monitoring. I want that. I want to be able to do that and have, you know, a nice user interface that can operate on the OLED display. So that's, yeah, that's fine. That's actually a good point. So this was testing it with an Arduino Nano, which is a pretty older processor. It's very basic. And if I ran it with anything faster, like like this thing, I was thinking about that. I'm like, man, I didn't have any problems polling the keyboard on this thing and updating the OLED. And then I realized that the OLED, it is I2C interface, but it is way faster. So the it's a 32-bit processor. It's a ESP32, so it's way faster. But even though it doesn't have high-speed USB on it, which means while you can do a lot of wireless stuff, you technically can't do much. You can't do USB hosting. Now, there's ways around that. If you do like software USB and add a little bit to your circuit, you can do it with VUSB. But I haven't played around with that. I haven't really tested that out. There is a keyboard. It's a really cool design. It's called the Plaid, and that one uses VUSB and an ATmega 328P PPU or whatever. It's really cool design. Really cool design. So it's smart. It does a cool feature with the circuit. The dude's Japanese, and the design is like, whew, it's very Japanese. It's pushing that kind of pushing that hardware to the limit, and all the electronics are through hole and displayed at the top. It looks fantastic. And that's a nice, 40% kit that you can get that is cool and looks cool doing it. So I mean, and that's actually, I think that's pretty popular, for some measures of popularity as far as custom mechanical keyboards go. But people are, buying this kit and putting it together and using the keyboard ostensibly without problems or without issues. So VUSB probably works just fine, but I would rather have something where the USB is integrated. The other thing is the reprogramming. I want to be able to easily reprogram it, so that interface is a big bugbear for me, because every time, like, I have my Signum 3.1 that's running a Pro Micro and some QMK firmware with my layout, mostly my layout on it, and I program it and I'm like, cool, all set. And then I take it to work where I'm on a Windows box, or I don't program it for a while and then I have to come back to it and I'm like, how did I program this thing again? And it's super annoying. And this is after changing the bootloader so that it works better. Like the JJ40, like the JJ40, that bootloader was very custom. It was set for their software, which is Windows only. So you had to get that installed, and then you had to use that software to burn a new bootloader that would be more cross-platform, and then you could interface with it mostly all right. And it's just annoying. And I think I have the answer to that. I think it's going to be one of the newer Teensies. I know the Teensy 2.0 great, but I would rather write good code than clever code, so I want more room than an ATmega 32U4 can provide. So I'm going to upgrade, and it's to something that is still Arduino compatible. I still want that accessibility. I want you to be able to write the code easily, and I want that teensy bootloader. It's fantastic, and it's cross-platform, and it's super easy. So that's what I think needs to happen. And PJRC do a great job, and have been doing a great job for a very long time, and have been providing this comparatively antiquated technology just for these communities, these niche communities that work well with that hardware. Now, obviously, if people are still buying, they're probably still going to make them, but you know, there's still business practices it's a lot easier to make fewer products. It's a lot easier. And if you have something that still sells but doesn't sell very well, it doesn't scale that well, especially in the electronics. So hats off to them, literally and metaphorically, for continuing providing these products, these development boards for hobbyists. So I do look to them for, I guess, reliability, availability. I'm kind of comparing them to to Adafruit, which is, I guess it's I think it's a nonprofit, or supposed to be a nonprofit, or something like that. I don't know what it is. I met the guy whose wife runs it once, and he was a good guy, and I'm sure she's a good girl, but I have products that I liked that they had that they stopped selling, and it's like, if I build around this, is it going to be here in 5 years? You know, am I going to be scrambling to adapt this because they just stopped making them? So we'll see. PJRC doesn't have that problem. I trust them a lot more. So, and the other thing is, they have a very good community. They're very supportive, it seems. They have an Arduino compatible, I don't know if it's kind of an IDE. It's like their flavor, the Teensy Duino. I don't know. I'll mess around with it. I'll find out about it. As far as I understood, it just kind of extends the Arduino language, but I might be wrong. At the end of the day, this is all meta language on top of C++, so who cares? But I like, I am still just one programmer. So working on these projects, I want to optimize my code, and optimizing your code for humans to read about and think about and work on usually means unoptimizing it for computers, or just taking up a lot of space in memory, doing layers of abstraction to make it easier to manage all this stuff. So that means a better processor, a bigger processor, hopefully something with a USB host, although technically the only thing I care about the USB host for is for the ease of programming, and if the Teensy has the Teensy bootloader on it, and it'll program just as easily, then if I have to VUSB, I really don't care. That would be just fine. They also do a good job of bringing out all the pins, all of the pins. So if you do run out of pins, which shouldn't happen on a numpad, but I've been playing pin battleship, I guess, for a while with some of these development boards, because I'm not ready to make the leap to designing PCBs with integrated controllers built onto them, soldered onto them. It's not necessarily an assembly process. There are legal complications to it that I'm not really willing to get into or even push on that much right now. So I think the code is the cool thing. I think the making a PCB that makes assembly very simple is the cool thing. Now that said, technically, it's an unpowered device until you add the the development board. So that development board might be the only thing that is left off of a pre-assembled or partially assembled kit to make things a little bit easier. So that might be okay. And you can order from PJRC with the teensy with pins attached, so that would be easy as well. Yeah, you can even pre-solder like a connector on it. all right. So some of that's pretty doable. But the point is, you know, I don't want it to be an ARM processor. I think that's super overkill, but if it was, I wouldn't complain. The other fact about this is the I2C interface for monitoring daughter keyboards that I wanted to do. It might make this the master device. You know, you buy the numpad, and then you buy the keyboard and plug it into the numpad, because the numpad is the main keyboard. It does all the processing. If the numpad is the brains, that would be all that you had to carry around. That would mean that you could have daughter keyboards at your work and at your home, and then you could carry around that numpad. And then you get there, you plug in the daughter keyboard, and you plug in the numpad to your computer, and now your daughter keyboard has the same layout that's loaded on the numpad. Because the numpad is the brains for the whole operation. So you would program it and the daughter keyboards in the numpad. And then you can carry the numpad around. Well, that's a lot easier. Never even thought of that. So that's pretty cool. And, you know, if you're doing that, if you're polling a whole bunch of different keyboards and stuff, yeah, I'll worry about that later. That's cool. I mean, like, you want the fast processor for that. It's not really overkill for that. I'm already ready to go. So that seems kind of cool. It's actually kind of ridiculous. I like it. How very odd. I love it. So thinking about what else it can do, what else it should do. Oh man, you could live remap the keyboard, the daughter keyboard, from the numpad display. Oh, that's weird. Ooh, that's also weird. You could put another OLED on the daughter keyboard. I gotta think more about this. If you have other weird and wild and strange ideas, like that YouTube commenter, thank you. Hats off to you as well, sir. It's an elegant solution to something that I've been kind of butting my head against for a while. So if you have other strange features and interesting ideas, please feel free to share them, because it is a back and forth in some regards. You know, there are comments that inspire me and point me off into different directions, and certainly emails. I get a lot of emails from people who have interesting ideas and or implement my keyboard in an interesting way. So I am definitely interested, and you know, I do want to know what you all think.